tickets go online to the NehalemTrust.org site. And this will be posted too. So you'll have to go to find out.
Oh, man.
There you go. All right. So, Carl, we are ready to start.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So our lesson today is on mulching. And we did our lesson last week on weeding and weeding techniques and weeding tools. Lisa was gifted with a really cool hoe. I had that one pointed one, but it wasn't real sharp. That is the hoe for the onions. So that is fabulous. So once you get all your weeding done, it's really important then to keep the weeds down. And there's a lot of different techniques for doing that. Some of which, all of which that we're going to talk about today are organic in nature and are approved by OMRI. But there's a few that I don't really care for because of the residuals, I'll put it that way. So you can mulch with all sorts of different things. Newspaper is a fabulous mulch, but you need to mulch with about 6 layers. So I would take a whole section like this, and I would lay it down on bare soil. So where we've weeded, you can lay this whole thing down and just continue to layer that section by section. And then you can put either digester or chips or grass or straw, anything like that, just to hold it down. In this case, I would probably elect to do the digester because it's nice and neat and weed-free, because we know that that is material that has been heated to kill all the weed seeds. So that is one form. You can also use cardboard, and as we know, we mulch a lot of our paths with cardboard and then the chips on top, and that's a barrier to prevent the weed seeds from germinating. Weed seeds need a lot of different things, including a lot of them need access to light within a certain period of them breaking that cotyledon or those seed leaves out. So by putting something on that's dark, that prevents them from getting up to get that light to feed themselves, that in itself will kill them. There are other things that you can compost with. Who knows what this is? Rhubarb? Yep, rhubarb leaf. So this is a great mulcher. I said compost, I meant mulching. This is a great mulch to use, and we use this under our gooseberries in particular because gooseberries have a pest that hates rhubarb. It repels them. So we take this and we would go right under our gooseberry. This is a gooseberry here. Preferably we will have cleared this out first, and then we will just lay those right under there, and that will block the weeds from coming up. So anytime that we harvest rhubarb, which we will be doing soon, I checked them this morning, they aren't quite ready, but soon we'll be harvesting. And every time we do, those leaves are poisonous, so we want to put those around the gooseberries, and it's a dual purpose. It also will feed the plant. So speaking of feeding the plant, there's another natural mulch that you can use, and these are comfrey leaves. Comfrey grows prolifically, and it could be spread if you disturb it too much, but if you just take the leaves off, you can keep it under control. Comfrey has a very deep taproot, and so what that taproot does is it goes down and it mines all the nutrients out of the deep subsoils and brings those micronutrients to the surface. So these are loaded with micronutrients. So you can use the same technique as what you did with the newspapers, and you can just lay these around. Again, layering after you remove your weeds, layering these so they're overlapping and they're going to block that sun. So that both feeds the plants and keeps the weeds from sprouting. I did have to harvest one rhubarb. A, B, C, whoever catches it gets it. More to come next week. We talked about the cardboard. There are other mulches. Straw is a good mulch. It's somewhat expensive. This material is packing material that the pots for salt and paper get. So we use that. And in this case, again, after removing your weeds, So we would need to take these weeds out. And then we would just nestle those right up to the potatoes, or whatever other crop that you have. So again, thick enough so that you can block that light out as much as possible. In the case of the potatoes, I would also probably put a little digester on because it'll help break this stuff down. So the next class of mulches, there's several different things that mulches do. So it blocks the weeds. It will either cool or warm your soil depending upon what kinds of materials you use. And it also will conserve moisture. So one of the things that people choose to do is they will use a black plastic. That obviously will keep the sun out. This is, believe it or not, organic, OMRI approved if you remove it from the field. I don't like plastic in the garden personally, so I use this very sparingly, if at all. I had another piece in here that I do occasionally use because it's easy to find, and I guess I didn't get it in the boxes I could plant. And it's red plastic. So red plastic will bounce certain UV light rays off and reflect it back onto the plant, and it will improve the productivity of your plant by, there's been scientific studies, and I read anywhere from 10 to 30% for your tomato production.
Karen, is that also true with red mulch?
Pardon me?
Is that also true with red mulch?
If it's a really bright red, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that red color spectrum is what does it. Green color spectrum, this is something I learned when I did my research for today's lesson. Green is supposed to be good for cucurbits, for discouraging thrips and flea beetles. So go figure. I've never tried it, but it'd be interesting to give it a go and try. So I talked about heating your soil and cooling your soil. Newspaper, straw, all those things are actually going to keep your soil cooler. So it's important that you don't put it on too early in our environment. So I would wait a little bit. You also have to be careful with slugs because you're creating a nice, moist, cool place for them to hang out. So, you know, it's good to use, but you have to also make sure that you're paying attention to all the other elements that or conditions that might create. So, lots of different ways to use mulches. The clear plastic people use to warm the soil because you can transmit the light and it will warm it up quicker here. And then you can remove it, but again, it's translucent, so those weed seeds do have light, and that light source, they can germinate and grow. So, any questions or other ideas about mulches?
What about the mulch that's right here? Is this good
Those
to
are
use
chips.
in your garden?
Those are chips. The chips have a high carbon to nitrogen ratio, and they will rob nitrogen from your garden as they break down. So if you do so, you need to add extra nitrogen, or you need to use them just in certain areas that you're going to lay fallow that year and then till them in, or incorporate them in, and like I said, use a lot of extra nitrogen because you got to get that balance. It's similar to our compost bin, and Renee is shaking her head. She talked about that when we did our compost lesson of you got to make sure that you've got that balance, or you end up too far one way or the other.
And then you have the consideration of how big the chips are and what kind of seeds you're planting. You don't want a bunch of chips in your carrot bed.
Yeah.
But you might not care about something that goes like that.
Like pumpkins, and that's what we're
Yeah.
going to do with the pumpkins. We'll put newspaper around and then put chips around them. So, but we'll just put them right around the base of them to keep those weeds down, because we can hand hoe until the vines start creeping. Remember last week when we talked about weeding is, you know, you can use that hula hoe or wide-bladed hoe and get through pretty quick. And our garden looked great after hoeing last week and weeding and doing all of that. So with that, you can see that the flower garden got about a half or a little bit more weeded last week. So we're going to work on that today. And I think we're done with our lesson for now. So thank you.